Hello and welcome to the latest briefing from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked and I'm joined by my colleague James Kearney as we look ahead to the next round of league games for Hearts of Midlothian Football Club. There has been and will no doubt continue to be plenty of discussion among supporters around the direction of the team, especially following Sunday's loss in the League Cup semi-final. This weekend's clash with Motherwell at Fir Park is certainly going to be huge going into the international break. It'll be then followed by 9 games between the end of November and beginning of January going into the winter break. So we're going to discuss what needs to be done on the field to get Hearts into a much healthier position in the Premiership. I mean, the table just now sees Hearts sitting fifth. 4 points off third. But as anyone knows in the Scottish Premiership, it's very bunched up. There is 6 points between 4th and 11th. 6 points between Hearts and bottom place St Johnstone, who drew last night with Motherwell. I watched the game last night. Motherwell weren't impressed at all, and you're looking at a team. It's like that is a team that Hearts should be going to Fir Park and winning without having to be under too much pressure. But yeah, we are going to kind of discuss that. We've had 11 league fixtures and what needs to change in the next 11 league fixtures for Hearts to be in third place or at least closer than the current 4 points to St Mirren, who could actually extend their lead because they play at home to Hibs tonight. They've got a game in hand over Hearts. So I suppose, elephant in the room. I feel like expect there to be comments around. I know one change that can be made, i.e., the managerial situation. Get understand the frustration, but as things stand, Stephen Naismith is very much the head coach. So we just wanted to kind of focus on the field and the key decisions that Naismith could and may have to make in the coming weeks to see Hearts get into a much better position. So James, kicking it off, I suppose we're going to be putting up an article later this week, kind of looking back at the first 11 league fixtures. And one thing you've noticed is, or one thing you've written about is a more consistent lineup. I mean, this is something we've probably talked about for a wee bit. Usually prior to games when the teams get announced, is that we never really know what team is going to be there. I mean, it could you look at it as a positive, you look at it as negative, but you'd like to see a more consistent lineup. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there will be certain games where you'll have to kind of radically alter the team. So maybe going 5 at the back against Celtic and Rangers, for instance. Fine, I get that. That's understandable. Or you might have certain players who are particularly suited to certain games, but I do think for the most part, I think a little bit of consistency can go a long way. I mean, I think particularly going forward, as I know we'll go on to speak about that more specifically, but we all know that Hearts have struggled to create decent chances this season. They're struggling to score goals, and part of that is probably the chopping and changing, I would think, because you look at the teams that have been playing every week, you look at the guys who are nailed on to start, and it's Xander Clark, Kai Rose, Frankie Kent, Lawrence Shankland, Kenneth Vargas starts most games, and so does Callum Neuenhoff. After that, it's kind of all bets are off.
Yeah.
There's not that many, nailed on starters week in, week out. So I think that I do think that's maybe been a little bit of a problem in that. I think you lose that kind of, and players need time to play alongside each other to get that understanding, to get things moving a little bit quicker. And I think particularly in the final third or getting forward, that's really important. Having that, being on the same wavelengths, having that kind of fluency and try to find a way through. And I think one of the things I would point out is that I think the defence has been largely quite settled, certainly over the last 5, 6, 7 games because of injuries to the likes of like Atkinson and obviously Halkett's still coming back. And the defence is probably the part of the team which is working best at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you do think that is that part of the reason, the fact that these guys are generally playing next to each other every single game, and they are developing that understanding, they are making life a wee bit more difficult. So I think that a consistent team selection can definitely help. I mean, I think little things like the shape, if it's a 4-2-3-1 kind of, we often see like the structure in the midfield change. Like, I think of the game against St Mirren away where Devon, there's kind of three centre mids, a left winger but no right winger. Or sometimes you've got Beningame playing as a 6 with two centre mids in front of him. Sometimes it's two holding midfielders or an attacking mid in front of them. Sometimes it's two strikers up top. Sometimes it's Shankland playing off Vargas. Sometimes it's Shankland with two wingers. There's just there seems to be a lot of I don't want to say throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's maybe a bit harsh, but I don't think Naismiths knows what his best team is yet. And I think given that we're now 11 games into the league season, we're in November now, I think fans should really have a better idea of what the strongest team is. And right now, I don't think we do know what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that I've been like, it's to and fro from, because you look at the defence, and especially with Halkett coming back, it suits a back three, and getting Frankie Kent, Halkett, and Rolls into a three would suit, and then it only means one of Kingsley or Cochrane. However, you could argue that you'd play, if like fit, you'd maybe go Halkett and Kent and just go, right, this is two centre backs suited to Scottish football. They'll do the basics. But at the same time, no one's really stepped up into that right back spot since Atkins departed. We saw Toby Siwick struggles at wing back on Sunday. We've seen a Fire struggles there. So I can see the back three, and it suits some players. And then going forward, sometimes I think with the back three, it looks a wee bit too safe. Especially you go back to Saturday, Siwick was playing wing back, whereas having Forrest out there does that. Cochrane is a good wing back, but he's not a winger. And then you've only really got Vargas and Shankland, and then you're really having to play a 10 there, whether it's Boyce or Lowry, to add in another attacking player. Whereas if it's a 4-2-3-1, you can get Shankland, Vargas, Oder, Forrest, and Boyce or Lowry, and you've got probably more attacking options there. So I do think it's the difficulties. If Atkinson was fit, I'd very much be going, right, you play a back four. You kind of settle a back four. And like you said, you can change it for certain games, especially away at those firm where you probably want a bit more defensive solidity. But more than most, if you had Atkinson, it lends itself to a back four. And then kind of 4-2-3-1, and you get more attacking players in there. But at the moment, I've not seen enough consistency or solidity from either Siwick or Fire to justify saying, right, they're ideal for the right back slot in a back four. And then you do think, right, let's stick with the back three. But then if we do, it has to be James Forrest as the right wing back or Oda to provide a bit more. Alan Forrest, Jesus. It's honestly, it's 10, 15 years of just James Forrest has been in and around Scottish football. So yeah, I agree that I think there probably does need to be a wee bit more consistent. I asked Naismith about it previously this season in terms of I think it was around Shankland, and he made the point with like, Shankland is getting used to different people. He's coming in. He's talked about Vargas due to injuries. Vargas having to come in and play too much, but I think he understands that they need to develop partnerships, relationships. But he still has been chopping and changing. I mean, again, I think that probably leads us on to the next point: is that Hearts need to. This is very simple as what they need to do: start scoring more goals. Because if you look at the goals for column in the Scottish Premiership, you have Hearts, who have scored 10 goals in 11 games. Only Livingston and St Johnstone have scored fewer. I mean, it doesn't even matter who scored fewer. It's the fact that Hearts have scored are averaging less than a goal a game. That is just really, really poor.
It is, yeah, and it's not what you expect from a Hearts team. Particularly when you look at the players that are in that squad, the attacking players. Obviously, Shankland, but even guys like Boyce, Oda, Vargas, these are all guys that should be able to contribute and should be getting on the score sheet. Because I think even like players in midfield scoring goals. I mean, that seems to be something that's just completely disappeared altogether. That we don't really seem to get much of that at all anymore. So I think that, yeah, I mean, it's obviously not good enough. Like, you need to do a lot better than that if you've got any hopes of, pushing for third, try to get that Europa League spot. You need to be scoring a lot more goals. And it's interesting with Hearts because, they do average a lot of shots per game. Like, they're, in terms of when you look across the whole league, they're one of the best. They average more shots than most. But the big problem is that they're not very good ones. That's the problem. They're all quite low XG, quite low probability. And I think that's partly to do with the fact that Hearts are slow when they build up. I think that's the reality of it. They don't get the ball back to forward quickly and to maybe catch defences out of position. It's almost always try to break down, 7, 8, 9 men behind the ball, try to find a wee gap. And then even when you do find that wee gap, it's so congested that it can be really difficult to get a decent effort at goal away. So I think, that's a big problem. I mean, we've talked about it before as well, but Ginnelly's not really been replaced, and I think that's definitely hampered Hearts in that regard. Like I say, because they don't have that that player who can kind of get in behind the stretch stuff and allow them to play a wee bit quicker. So I think part of it is because of the fact that in possession, Hearts can be quite pedestrian, and I think that it gives the opposition time to organise. It gives the opposition time to make sure everyone's marking, everyone's in the right areas, and it just means that when Hearts end up eventually having a shot, it's often not a great one. I mean, think of the game against Livingston a week ago, where I think by the end of it, I think Hearts had 25 shots, which is obviously a lot.
Yep.
They got one goal, yeah, fantastic, but there weren't too many clear-cut chances. It was like a lot of it was kind of speculative, and I think that's what needs to improve because, again, we've talked about it before, but when I look at Hearts' passing stats, things like deep completions, like passes in and around the box, that's all quite good. It's all relatively high compared to the rest of the league. But yet the shots are rubbish. The shots they're not taking shots in good areas. So that says to me that there needs to be a bit more urgency there, I think. And I think, fans, I think we've seen that most weeks is the fact that in games where Hearts are playing basically anyone apart from Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen or Hibs, basically in those kind of games, they do really struggle to get just actually fashion chances, and that's probably down to the fact of, like I say, I think they're being a wee bit too slow getting forward, and there's also there's probably not enough creativity in midfield either.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I've just glanced at the comments just now, and a point Graham's made. Apart from it, most of it very similar, very kind of defensive, and it's like I wouldn't necessarily like Neuhoff, Devlin, and Bingham are defensive. I just don't think they are. They're just attacking enough. They just don't have that kind of real pass in them, and it's something that we talked about wrote about on from Sunday's game, where when players have a pass on, they are too safe with that pass, and this was probably the case under Nielsen as well. And remember seeing Nielsen quite agitated at the sidelines when they take too long to make a certain pass or get it forward. Naismith's been the same. He's kind of urgently get forward, and then it's just they take either a player takes a touch too much, hesitates, almost like lacks conviction in what he wants to do, or if he's wanting to get it out wide to Cochrane, for example, rather than going straight to Cochrane who's open, maybe go to Rolls first, and then Rolls will go to Cochrane. That allows teams to come back and get into a defensive position, which we have seen so often this season. And you're right, the stats are, if you just look at the stats, they are encouraging for how Hearts get into the Hearts getting in the final third. I mean, only Celtic have played more passes per game inside the opposition box. But the problem with Hearts is that when they're making these passes in the opposition box, the opposition usually have about 8 folk back ready to snuff out or block a shot. And then it's like, we should take more long range shots. Hearts are quite high up in the league in terms of hitting shots from distance, but again, it's because they often do it with loads of players behind the ball And that is, it's probably the key attacking change that needs to be made. Hearts fans have been promised kind of front foot aggressive football. We've not seen that this season. Seen glimpses of it last season under the 7 games of Naismith interim charge. 1 or 2 bits this season, but not nearly enough to be kind of convincing or inspirational for fans to get really excited about. There needs to be more just direct play. More just, I thought Neuenhoff, having watched him in the A-League playing alongside what is it Morgan Schneiderlin, guy who used to play for Man United. And he was someone who looked like, right, he's going to get the ball from A to B, whether it was running or passing. But he's shown signs of it, but not really taken the midfield by kind of the scruff of the neck and done that. So it's a real, that's something that really needs to change, is far more directness within the midfield.
Yeah, no, I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all see that. I think that, like Graham said, a lot of the midfielders, they're not the most attacking minded players. I mean, I lost count the amount of times in the Livingston match, for instance, when Ingame was actually, maybe quite central, 20, 25 yards out. He's got time to hit a shot if he wanted to, but obviously that's not his game. He's not very good at that. There's a reason he's not hitting the shot, because he can't really do it. And it's just that kind of thing of if you had maybe someone who can, strike a ball in there, maybe all of a sudden you start getting shots away, you start getting chances, and who knows what happens. So yeah, I think there's definitely part of that. But again, I think you're right. It comes back to this thing about the whole team tending to pick the safe option when in possession, rather than try to take risks and see what happens. I mean, to be fair, I think the one player who gambles pretty much every time he gets the ball is probably Alex Lowry.
Yeah.
And obviously we can see that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it can get quite frustrating on the days where it's not working for him. So I can definitely see that, but I do think that it is a question of just basically just getting the ball up the park quicker, because right now, again, it's the Hearts are not moving opposition players around, they're not moving opposition defenses around. It's basically just trying to break down a very solid structure, which is always going to be incredibly difficult. And I think the only way to do that, again, is you need to be a bit faster, you need to be a bit more urgent, a bit more direct. Because players like Vargas, Forrest, Oda, they have got the pace to hurt teams. They're not all lightning quick, but they're fast enough that they can get in behind, and they're faster than most defenders. They can make life difficult for them. But I just don't think we're seeing enough of that really at all. So yeah, I think it's just it's a little bit meandering at times, and for all the that gives you defensive security at the other end. It does mean the goals have dried up. I mean, I'm sure most people will have seen that tweet from Pie and Bovril the other day, where it was talking about the amount of goals that are scored at either end for every club in the country, and Hearts were the second lowest. And I think that says a lot about what we've been seeing so far, and that it's just it's not the most entertaining stuff at the moment. And when it's not entertaining, that makes life, supporters lose patience a lot quicker when they're not even being entertained. I mean, look at someone like McInnes at Aberdeen, and he was doing a pretty decent job all in. It was they're performing relatively well, but the football was boring. And then so as soon as results turn, you've got nothing else to fall back on. So yeah, I think definitely there needs to be a lot more. I'd like to see a bit more creativity in the team, and again, just a bit more intent. Because I think that's the big thing. It's just there's not that much. We're not seeing that intent on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that goes back to a mentality issue. That's just the aspect of play, that if you're not wanting to be wanting to be aggressive, and I think that was a mental thing on Sunday, where there was options to move it quickly and forward, and it was almost like, should we do it just in case? And the flip side is you talked about the Pie and Bovril stat, the number of goals in Hearts games. The flip side is that the team have been good defensively. I think there's been probably the numbers maybe in terms of conceding been slightly generous, but we've been solid. And again, allowing being a bit more meandering, was probably giving the team a bit more of a solid base in which to defend, and they're less likely to concede. But yeah, there needs to be a balance, and the balance is not really struck right at the moment. And one thing within that, in terms of being more threatening and attacking, is something that you've already written about the season, James, is goals or a threat from set pieces. Still not conceded. Still not. Still don't think we've scored a goal from a set piece in the league this season. I'm still going to double check that.
I don't think so, unless you count Lowry's goal, but in the derby. But I wouldn't say that is, because that's a kind of second phase of play and all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, I'm quite generous to call that a set piece goal. But the set piece thing is it's kind of the Hearts team in a microcosm, because
we've scored one.
Sorry.
Scored, yeah. So ourselves, Motherwell and Livingston are the only teams to have scored fewer than 2 goals. Dundee and Aberdeen have scored 6 apiece. Kilmarnock and St Johnstone on 4.
Right. No, again, I think this is the whole thing in a microcosm, in that going forward, attacking set pieces, Hearts are not making the most of them whatsoever, but they get lots of them. Certainly when I wrote that article a week or two ago, at that point, Hearts were averaging the most set pieces in the league. That's the most corners in the league, most attacking indirect free kicks in the league, and yet they had one of the lowest XGs from attacking plays in the league. So it shows you that they're getting the opportunity, but they're just not making the most of them. Whereas at the back, again, they're actually doing quite good. I think Tavernier's free kick the other day, that was probably the first. I think that's the first set piece that Hearts have conceded this season. And I know that
not conceded in the league.
I know that I know some fans are getting a bit annoyed that the whole team come back for corners and deep free kicks. You've got 10 men, 11 men in the box. But the flip side of that is they're not conceding. So okay, it's maybe a bit much, but it is working. So I don't know if that's the biggest concern at the moment. So but like we're saying, like attacking set pieces is a problem. Part of it is just because I don't think there's that many targets to aim for. When you look at the Hearts squad, you look at the players that are playing most weeks, and you've got probably Kent, Rose, Shankland, maybe Sibbock. Like, those are the guys you're aiming for, and it's not great in terms of guys who are actually going to win their headers, get a shot on target. I mean, you'd bank Shankland to do it the most, but obviously he's going to be marked by 2, sometimes 3 players at these kind of instances. So yeah, it's a problem for sure.
That's a conversation for another day. But my irritation with the lack of big physical Hearts in this team is a frustration. But we'll save that for another day. I suppose one of the last things I want to touch on is the record at Tynecastle this season, in that if there's one thing that really does need to improve from the first round of fixtures to the second round of fixtures, is the results at Tynecastle and Gorgie. At the moment, Dundee, St Mirren, Rangers, Celtic, as expected, and Kilmarnock all have a better home record than Hearts. Hearts have won 8 points from 6 games, scored just 6 goals at home. Whereas you look at Kilmarnock, they average 2 points. Average 2 points per game at home. St Mirren, 2 points per game at home. Why is it flicked round? I'm not sure what my phone's in there. But yeah, St Mirren and Kilmarnock average 2 points per game at home. That's something the Hearts should be doing the bare minimum at Tynecastle, and they've done it a lot of times in the past, is make Tynecastle that fortress and a difficult place to come, a nightmare to play. So it's not really been that far away sides of the season. I think only in terms of a team who came and just like looked miles off it, where Aberdeen, Livingston came with a game plan, frustrated Hearts for a long time. Celtic obviously eased to a win. There was the Derby played really well. Actually, I still think played really, really well, and Derby should have won it, except for that 90 seconds. But like you look at Kilmarnock and Motherwell came and did really well, and they came and they kind of knew what they needed to do, and it wasn't really made uncomfortable for them, which I think no matter who comes to Tynecastle, they should be made to feel very, very uncomfortable.
No, definitely. I mean, it's supposed to be one of the most intimidating venues in Scotland, and yeah, like you say, there isn't that kind of fear factor around at the moment. I mean, look back to, I think, the Motherwell game in particular, where Motherwell were the better team that day. They deserved the 3 points. They were, they absolutely deserved it. And okay, yes, they were in excellent form at the time and all that kind of stuff. But even still, I mean, Hearts should be, they should be winning most games at home, obviously. But then even in the games where they are dropping points, you'd expect them to still at least be like, maybe it's the better side and just, a couple of moments go against them. Maybe they get, maybe, they miss Hearts miss a sitter, the other team get a dodgy penalty, something like that. That happens. But again, there's not that really, that kind of, I think certainly earlier on in the season, there wasn't really that sort of sense of control. I think we're maybe seeing that a little bit more, but then that's perhaps down to the fixture list, playing like Livingston, for instance, who just don't apparently want to score goals ever, and they're just going to sit back the whole time. Things like that, where it's like, okay, you're going to get a lot more of the ball. But no, I mean, the Hearts' home form, any club's home form, if you want to achieve anything, you're going to, you need to be winning the majority of your games at home. And okay, I can understand like Celtic or Rangers, those are going to be difficult games to get anything from. I understand that, but every other team in the league, Hearts should definitely be looking. They shouldn't be losing any games. I would argue very few games anyway to teams outside the Old Firm. And I think certainly in terms of, I think the biggest disappointment is just again to go back to the scoring thing, but it's goals. Hearts aren't scoring enough goals at home, and Tynecastle can be a really difficult place to go, and especially if Hearts get an early goal, it can send you on your way, and then it can be it can be a real mountain to climb to get back into it at that point. But again, it's just we're not seeing that kind of that pressure, that urgency that can kind of rattle opposition teams, because opposition teams right now are coming to Tynecastle by and large, and they're going, hey, we're going to sit back, we're going to keep it compact, we're going to frustrate, and a lot of time that has worked so far. So yeah, I think that there definitely needs to be improvement in terms of home form, just because I mean, if it continues as it is, never mind Europe, like top 6 could be in doubt. You need to be getting winning the majority of your games at home. That's just the reality of football. So yeah, you'd expect there to be a lot more improvement there. But again, that's going to have to come from what we're talking about earlier. It has to come from putting more pressure on opponents, playing with greater urgency, trying to unsettle them, trying to disrupt them. Because right now, Hearts aren't really doing that at home in home games, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and it's not to worry, because it's only Craig Levein and St Johnstone that are coming to Tynecastle for the next match. So
how did that look?
Yeah, that's and they did St Johnstone to be watching the game last night. It looked they'll look better.
That's not saying much, let's be honest.
No, I know. That's not saying much. I mean, I'm watching. I mean, we'll come on to net on Friday's show. I might get Scott, because you might do in the press, or we'll decide on that. But I think Scott might get Scott on to chat with myself or yourself. Looking ahead to the Motherwell game, but watching the game last night, two, I think, really poor sides that Hearts should be looking at 6 points. The whole, there's never an easy game, and yeah, you need to be fully focused, treat everyone with respect going into the game. But you're looking at these two next games and thinking 6 points is the bare minimum for those two games.
Particularly with the games that are to come as well.
Exactly.
Get points on the board, and they're going to have to do it now.
Exactly, because you look after that, you're away to Kilmarnock, who, as we talked about Rugby Park, it's a very difficult place to go. Saying that, we did win in the League Cup,
yeah.
But then you've got can't remember which order, but Aberdeen, Celtic, Rangers, Hibs, St Mirren, all before the new year. Not easy. So
no,
yeah, I think it's not. I don't think it's saying out of turn to say that Saturday's massive, and then the 2 games after the international break are absolutely massive as well, and we all know a lot can change in that time. But in the time being, thank you very much, James. Thank you very much for everyone for listening. You can, if you've just joined or want to listen to it again, not sure why you would, but if you want to listen to it again, it is available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts, as well as a podcast. You can download it. Be sure to check out heartstandard.co.uk. We have some stuff going up this week, or have had stuff go up this week around the B team and academy, and also looking ahead to kind of looking back to look ahead, if that makes sense, looking at what the first round of fixtures and what's to come. So yep, and anything else will be, any latest or breaking news will be on the site as well. So thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.